the image you get, Jim, and you're closer to this than I'll ever be, is that Joe Biden didn't jump. He was pushed. And among those pushing him was Barack Obama and Nancy Pelosi. What do you think of that?
Well, I think it was clear that the president looked at his numbers, looked at this race and said, I'm not helping my party. And it's time to let someone else do that. I don't think that means he got pushed.
You were right. Messina was wrong. And we all know it. And I think it was unfortunate.
Well, it's a done deal. It doesn't matter now at this point, does it? Joe Biden left the convention after making a speech that was pushed way past prime time on Monday night. Don Peebles with us right now, the former Obama fundraiser, friend of Barack Obama, Peebles Corporation CEO and founder. Don, I know you're very close to Barack Obama, but a lot of people say, and maybe you have no problem with this yourself, that he was the guy who helped orchestrate, along with Nancy Pelosi, Joe Biden quietly leaving this race. Do you agree with that?
Well, I think that it was definitely Nancy Pelosi. I think at some point Barack Obama told him that he did not have a pathway to victory. And I think others in the party were also encouraging Biden to get out. What they saw is a certain defeat and wanted to make an adjustment to go to their other option. And that was Harris, who initially was, as you may recall, the least attractive of the two candidates initially between Biden and Harris.
Are you surprised the party has rallied around her and this ticket to the extent it has? There was a great deal of agita back and forth about the way this went down, but it went down, and the party, had this brief period where it looked like it was going to be Friction City. That disappeared. What do you think?
Well, I don't think the party had any alternative. Once Biden left the race and he endorsed Harris as he left the race, it made it very difficult for the Democrats to go in any other direction. And they needed a candidate that could step in and hit the ground running and basically jump into Biden's infrastructure and take the money, the hundreds of millions of dollars that he raised. And that was the only choice here was Harris.
You know, there's a lot going on in this. Next to last night at the convention, we're going to hear from Bill Clinton, who's not too bad a speaker himself, and obviously the vice presidential pick. But I wanted to get your thoughts on this back and forth about the Teamsters president wanting to speak to Democrats as he had an opportunity to do with Republicans. And so far, Sean O'Brien has said his phone isn't ringing. What do you make of that? Would it be a mistake for Democrats not to let him speak?
Absolutely, it would be a mistake for Democrats not to let him speak. But the challenge has been with our party is that if you say something contrary or you are receptive to hearing from Republicans, then you're ostracized. And that's what's happening here. They are penalizing him for speaking to Republicans. And I think that the idea here, we're going to unify the country, as President Obama said last night, then we need to unify the country by speaking to people across the aisle. And certainly the Teamsters is a very important union, but they're a more moderate union. And I think that the Democrats are making their point here, incorrectly so, though.
All right. I did want to point out that I don't know whether it was our interview or our chat, but Harris campaign officials are saying they do hope to meet with the Teamster president, Sean O'Brien, or the greater Teamster representation at all. We'll see what happens with that. But I did want to step back as well and talk about something that union guys often talk about, and that is jobs. And we learned today in these latest revisions from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, they do this every year or so, that shows we really have 818,000 fewer than we thought we had. What do you make of that and what it portends?
One, I think it's disturbing that they can't get their math right, but also it makes you wonder, were they beefing these numbers up intentionally? The reality is that the economy was growing at a very rapid pace from 2017 to 2019, and then COVID hit, and there was massive job loss. The airlines are still recovering from it, as are other industries. And so as a result, they're picking back up labor to the degree they can find it. But right now, we have a shortage because people are working remotely. They're taking offline jobs and the like. So I think that the economy is in much worse condition than some of these numbers pretend to, because I think that they are inaccurate, like the job numbers that we have. We're almost 1 million less. That's a pretty significant number. And I think inflation, as we've talked about before, is far worse than people think it is, because of the reality of the high cost of interest that's tripled during this administration.
You know, interest rates are tumbling today as people, as you know this better than anyone, who are buying bonds like crazy. That drives the yield down. We're at about a 1.5-year low on interest rates. Mortgage rates at a close to 1 3/4-year low. That could be, you know, the wind at the back of Democrats, or if it gets really bad, you know, wind hitting them in the face. Where are you on this?
Oh, I don't think that that's going to have much of a consequence. I think Americans are going to look at the last 3.5 years of their experience with this administration and in the country, and some of the policies, and I think that they're going to react. Many are reacting to the economic conditions they face every day. So I think it's not going to have a consequence here. I will say this: I thought that the Democratic convention is much more on emotion and much less on policy, and I'm hopeful that they'll start talking about some policies that can move the country forward.
Now, real quickly, you had urged Donald Trump to do the same when last we chatted. He appears to be talking policies and issues fairly nonstop now, not so much of the personal attacks. They're always in the eye of the beholder because the other side does a damn. Is it your sense that that is a winning strategy for him?
Yes. Well, let me say this. I think that the person that beats Donald Trump is Donald Trump. So if Donald Trump doesn't beat Donald Trump, then it's going to be a tough race for Vice President Harris.
Got it. All right, Don, thank you very much. Good catching up with you. Don Peebles, big Obama fundraiser. Worried about Democrats, a little less so Republicans.
Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You won't get it anywhere else.